Hi, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslock talking about reciprocity.com, the sharing economy proofreading platform that I'm trying to build. The E is spelled with a 3. And in this particular video, I actually wanted to talk about quality rankings and academic rankings and journal quality and the whole publisher perish mentality that occurs in academia. So this is part of my Thesis Help series. It's all about These videos are all about being in graduate school and how to either prepare to get to go to graduate school, and all of the sort of tips and tricks that I wish I knew going into academia, right? So that's when you go into, maybe you're going into a master's or a PhD program or something like that, and you want to learn about this kind of stuff. So it's kind of the ins and outs of graduate school. And so I'm a professor of innovation and strategy and entrepreneurship at a large state institution in Florida. And what I wanted to do and talk about in this particular video is how quality and the obsession with quality is so important and to the academic practice and to becoming a great academics, as well as what are the downfalls of all of this sort of focus on quality and stuff like that, right? So that there definitely is some problems with it, but it's also some benefits with it. So with that, the first thing I'm going to do is get right into talking about the importance of quality. So you can imagine that in the world of academia, there is a tremendous amount of ideas, right? So that's basically all we do. And the currency of academics is just coming up with new and interesting ideas. Well, there is a lot of uncertainty about what is a good idea and what is a bad idea. And the only way that you can judge whether something is actually a good idea, if you sit down and think about it, is when other people are deferring and sort of referring to that particular idea, and whether it actually sort of builds into and becomes a major part of what other people think about, right? So the way that you can initially vet some ideas is go through the peer review process in a journal, right? So this is where somebody else is going to sort of critique and give you some feedback and stuff like that to improve the quality of the particular idea that you have. And then after that, the only way that you can judge, once it gets through the review process and it becomes part of a journal, in an article published in a journal, the only way is you can look to see is whether other people are citing it, whether the degree of the sort of senior scholars that are thinking about that particular idea that was dreamt up, all of these sort of dimensions, how many people are actually looking and following along with that particular idea. All of those things are all about quality and how people think about the particular quality of that idea. And that's the only way that you can know is whether somebody is actually citing it. So there's a huge one way to judge performance and the performance of particular academics is through how many citations that you have. It's not only just about the articles that you've written, but how many citations that you have. And then you can also think about how many sort of senior level people that are, citing your work and thinking that your work is interesting. Maybe they talk about that particular work, is looking at the particular network you have, just different things like that. There's all sorts of different ways to judge quality, but a lot of it just refers to how many people are actually thinking about your idea and who's actually thinking about your idea. Those are the important things. Citations are critical parts of any part of academia. There's also, if you think about how journals, so that's academics themselves, but also universities are obsessed with quality and improving their quality, right? So there is, the way that they improve their quality is they bring in academics that are publishing more. Maybe, sometimes teaching is not as relevant as one would hope. Although we do like to teach and we do try our best at that, but the focus at most major research schools is research, right? So the funding is all about research. And so there's obsession with getting in bigger and better researchers to a particular institution. So there's a fair bit of sort of looking to see how people's making sort of quality judgments on academics and pulling them into a particular department and creating sort of a quality department, right? So there's quite a bit of thinking about that along the way, and recruiting and building a quality department that is going to publish more, bigger, and better ideas, right? There's also an obsession. The students are very, very much obsessed with quality. If you think about, and the reason it actually makes great sense, if you think about it, is that most students want to go to better quality schools for the amount of money that they are spending, right? And the reason is they want a better bang for their buck. There is a qualitative difference in the ideas that are generated from sort of higher quality schools to lower quality schools. There's not a lot of difference in the particular content that's covered, but there's a substantial difference in how you are thinking, how you're being pushed, and stuff like that, that the sort of qualitative aspects of what you're learning is fundamentally different. And there's a fundamentally different cohort. And the reason why they do that is because you can get a better job, right? So students are obsessed with the quality that they get, and quality of education they get, and the ideas that are being generated, because they can get a better job at the end of it. Generally, you can get a better job from going to better schools, and people are willing to pay a obscene amount of money to go to some institutions, because they often they often get a very good return on their investment. They make more money at the end of it, as well as the quality of their ideas that they end up having are much more, they're much better than the ones that you go to lower status or lower quality places. And now, in general, that is true, but there are definitely differences across the board, and it's just because it's really hard to understand where is a better place and what's a better place. So this creates a obsession. These kind of factors create an obsession with rankings, that creates an obsession with a focus on quality, and creates an obsession of just being very preoccupied with that performance of, how many publications people have, what is the quality of the publications they have, what is the ranking of the institution you're at, what is the ranking of the department that you're in. All of these things are very, very heavily focused on, and it really is a big part of academic life, that there is this tremendous focus on quality and ranking, and an obsession of how good you are and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't necessarily change ever. That's because, again, there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace about ideas. It's really hard to know what's a good idea and what's a bad idea. And so the only way that you could do that is by looking to see who's paying attention to how they're ranked against other people, right? Because, an idea is very much a tacit thing. It's hard to understand what exactly is an idea. Or what exactly is a good idea until other people recognize it as a good idea. It seems strange, but it's very much, very, very true. And so this creates, this obsession. It's great because it drives performance for people, right? Drives, a lot of people are very, very much motivated by these quality standards. And actually most people are, right? It drives your obsession with sort of moving up in, journals, for example, publishing in more journals. It drives your obsession with trying to get to bigger and better places. It drives the obsession of students always putting pressure on the quality of the education, and there is a lot of benefit behind that. But there is some very real downsides that are pretty well known in academic life. And they're well known in research as well. There's one thing, so I study organizations. A lot of people study this kind of stuff, and what are the impacts of these kind of different performance, focusing on different kinds of performance. One thing that's really big in organizational theory, which is the sort of broad area that I'm in, is looking at how different performance metrics, whether it's being very observed or hidden performance metrics, actually impact performance, and how we are obsessed and think about performance in different ways. One thing that we do know is that there's something called the Matthew effect, right? So this is where we bestow based on a person's status. So status It's a sociology type perspective or an idea where we look at, what status is, how somebody sort of fits within a social setting or a social order. And what's neat is that what's a neat thought here is that we believe that people give extra endorsements to people that have higher status. So they might get extra resources, right? So if they are belonging to a higher status institution, right? There's a lot of great ones out there versus, lower status institutions that we bestow them extra resources. They get extra financial resources. They might get better graduate students, for example. They might get better graduate students, ones that are gonna, maybe that they're a little bit smarter, maybe they're gonna work a little bit harder, things like that. They might get all sorts of other benefits that are unobserved. They might get more. Oh, the other one is opportunities. They get many more opportunities that other people at lower status institutions don't get. So they might get, invited to go into a journal or, an article. They might get invited to be an editor. All these kind of different opportunities that are generally harder to get in lower status places. And this is all called the Matthew effect, that the more that you the better the quality that people perceive you to be. And it's all perception, right? That's what status is. They're going to give you more resources and more, that they're going to believe that you can actually do a little bit more. And they're going to give you extra resources and extra opportunities to allow you to become better. So what this creates is what's called rich gets richer dynamics. The Matthew effect is actually based on a quote in the Bible. And I put a Wikipedia link there if you want to look at it. That's probably, there's a lot of literature on this. It's really interesting, but the Wikipedia link is just good enough. Basically, it's the idea that rich gets richer. So the more resources you have and the sort of better quality you are perceived to be, you're going to get more resources given to you. And this happens, right? So so at the university level, right, people perceive that you are prestigious for whatever reason, then you might get extra you might get extra donors giving money to you because they think that you are prestigious for whatever reason, right? And that does happen. That's very much a real thing. So you get extra financial resources, which is the reason why very high status institutions have huge endowments, right? People believe that their money is going to be very well managed. And they're sort of defaulting based on the status of that particular organization that's going to be well managed, and it's going to go to the best possible researchers that are around. The other thing that you're going to do is you are going to be obsessed with your performance with these. So that's the second thing. You're going to be really obsessed with your performance and measuring how many journal articles you have, what's the quality of the journal articles. You're going to do a lot of social comparison effects with all of your cohort, right? So you might think, oh, this person has that, you don't have that. Why don't I have that? Am I problematic? I have this other person doesn't have that, so I must be better than them for whatever reason. And there's all these kind of social comparisons and focus on performance that or sometimes they're real and sometimes they're not real, right? Sometimes you get lucky and people get substantial amount of publications at the beginning. Sometimes they're not lucky and they work really hard and much more harder, and they stay up really late to get things done because they know that they have a limited amount of time, and all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different factors at play that people don't recognize when they're sort of thinking about performance. And because it's a really subjective way to measure things, very, very subjective way to measure things, that we get kind of really wrapped up in all that kind of stuff. And there's lots of both pluses and negatives with this sort of social comparison thing and this obsession with performance at the individual level. The other thing that you will find out with this obsession with quality, or because there's all this quality, focus on quality, is that there's very much this sort of publish or perish mentality, in that you have to publish as much as you can, or else you're not going to survive. And that's true. You're not going to survive very long in academia if you don't publish a lot and you consistently publish over time and focus on publishing sort of good quality stuff over time. It's very, very true. The publish or perish thing is true, because you just don't get resources after a while. Those are going to dry up. And then the third thing that is really tricky is that you can't judge the performance of other people, even in really close sub areas, right? So I'm in organizational theory is sort of my broad category, but I can't judge people in the quality of the work that people are doing in management information systems, which is a really similar field, but completely different. They both are in the College of Business, but I can't judge those. It's really hard for me to judge, what's a good thing over here versus a bad thing over there. And there's no way for you to judge it. It seems like they're so closely related and we're all kind of doing the same thing, but it's not, because I can't judge the performance of how people are doing. And so it becomes really tricky. And the only way that people end up judging as somebody else and their performance and their ideas and stuff is based on sort of these quantitative metrics, like, citations, for example. Things like that it might not be true. Maybe they're publishing in sort of lower tier journals, and they're not getting a lot of publications, but the ideas are really good. And, often that's really tricky to judge that kind of stuff. And that's the one thing, and we sort of may hold some people in esteem and other people not, based on these things, and we just can't necessarily judge what is going on behind the scenes. And that's true. That's very much true, that you have to think about that behind the scenes and sort of figure out, what is it that you can glean from what other people are doing, or not try to discount what other people are doing. There's a real pull towards sort of discounting people based on, maybe that they don't have a certain number of publications or something like that, right? So you have to really, really think about those particular dynamics. So what can you do, or what should you do in this circumstance, or what can you do? I mean, first of all, you got to play the game. There definitely is a game, the publish or perish game. You have to maintain that in order to get your resources, right? So you have to be making sure that you're publishing in the best journals and as many as you can over time. You also should, try to be as open as possible. Know that this is a real thing, that there is kind of discounting that happens, that there is status effects that happen, and, try to be aware of it and try to listen to what other people are saying. And even though that they're in different areas and stuff like that, and try to be as open and honest as possible. Like, try to be authentic when there's somebody that has ideas out there, because they might be good ideas. You just can't judge those good ideas until you sort of sat down and thought about that. So there is, just try to be a decent human being is basically what I'm trying to say. And the other thing is to be well aware of just being sort of at different positions and stuff like that. There is a way. So there's a third thing that you could do, is you can actually strategize and think about the optimal way that you can get the most amount of resources that people are discounting, and or places and things that don't have a relatively high status, but they have a large amount of resources. And so you can play a game where you can look for different institutions that have a lot of resources but low status, because there's going to be less people vying for the low quality or low status. I mean, low status, not quality. Low status places or locations and things like that. And you can exploit that, right? It's a bit in what's called arbitrage. And like strategic arbitrage that goes on. And you could definitely play that. That's a really important strategy that you could do, is look for those particular opportunities. And they do exist. It actually very much exists in these kind of industries or dynamics where they have that dynamic where we're just basing it on status. So that's the only thing I wanted to talk about, or that's the thing I wanted to talk about with this particular Thesis Help video. Hopefully you found it interesting and helpful for you. and why we're so preoccupied. I just really wanted to talk about why we are so preoccupied with publish or perish and these academic rankings and all that kind of stuff. So again, it's because there's a lot of uncertainty about a particular idea, and the only way that we can judge the quality of the idea is by looking to see what other people say about that idea and how they defer to that particular idea, right? And it creates a bunch of positive things, such as being sort of focused on performance, but then it also creates a lot of negative things as well. So being obsessed with quality and performance, being obsessed with publishing, being obsessed with standings and stuff like that. And there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes with those particular things. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this video, do the old thumbs up. You can also do a that's fine as well. You can watch old videos. Those definitely help out. You can leave comments, all that kind of jazz. The other thing that you could do is look at what I'm doing with reciprocity. That's really what I'm trying to do these videos about. The E is spelled with a 3. And what I'm trying to do is actually build a platform, a proofreading platform where if it actually ever generates money, profits, which it currently doesn't at this moment, but if it does, then I'd actually like to start giving scholarships to PhD students and people that are doing interesting things. And that's really what my end goal is with this, is to allow me to be more giving with myself and extend my reach a little bit more than I can right now. So with that, thank you so much. Take care and have a good day. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye.